Have you ever felt frustrated by higher education's four-letter S word? I'm talking about silo. Are you at a loss for how to effectively collaborate with other departmental leaders on financial matters? If you said yes, trust me, you're not alone. Welcome to our October episode of News and Brews Sports Biz, our To The Point podcast and video series that features new developments related to the coronavirus pandemic and other emerging issues impacting the business of college sports. I'm your host, Katie Davis, the leader of the James Moore Collegiate Athletics Services team. This month, we're branching outside of the athletics business office to talk about external operations. Joining us today is Tim George, Senior Associate AD for External Operations and the Chief Marketing Officer for the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Welcome, Tim. Let's start off telling me about your brew.
Yeah, so I have a Natty Greens Amber Ale. Natty Greens is a Greensboro, local Greensboro brewery. Actually, a couple of UNCG guys that run it. One of my favorite beers. I like ambers anyway. And Natty Greens is named after Nathaniel Greene, who was a Revolutionary War general, who Greensboro was actually named after. But they do a lot of great beers over there in the amber. It's a buckshot amber is what it's called, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that sounds good. I haven't tried that brewery yet, but I look forward to it next time I'm up in North Carolina.
Definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, I appreciate that you also like craft beers and showcasing something unique to your area. I'm going with the October theme, and this is not our area, but it's the Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest, which is always a really good Oktoberfest for this time of the year. I'm switching it up from my normal IPA to feel a little bit more like fall. And a shout out to Chico, California, which is where Sierra Nevada is located. My partner in crime here at James Moore, Ken Kurtzel, was born and raised in Chico, so he's partial to Sierra Nevada. So I'm excited. He actually brought this beer to me to use today. So,
cool.
Yeah, so it's really good though. So
I love Oktoberfest beers. Actually, I've got Shiner Oktoberfest in the fridge right now that I've been drinking as well. But yeah, I love this time of year because I do love the Oktoberfest. I'm like you, I really enjoy IPAs, but I usually switch it up a little bit in the fall. I love the IPAs in the summer for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to start off by asking you to share a little bit about your history in college athletics. What got you in the industry? How did you get where you are now? And what roles do you currently fill at UNCG?
Yeah, sure. So the way I got into college athletics actually was I don't guess I would say it was an accident, but it wasn't what I was intending to necessarily go into. I knew I wanted to get into sports, and I needed to do an internship as a part of actually as a capstone for graduation at the University of Missouri. And just so happened there was an opportunity in the marketing department as a volunteer intern in athletics there, and so I ended up getting that opportunity. Loved it and did that. Worked as a volunteer intern at Missouri for 2.5 years, and two of those while I was in undergrad, and then when I graduated, they kept me around for a little bit longer with pay, which was probably I think like $500 a month. It was not very much, but it was something, and it kept me around, and I enjoyed it. I loved it, and was fortunate after leaving Missouri and my internship was up. I went to the University of Florida, actually to be an intern in the marketing department there, and that's where I really kind of started to think, hey, I might be able to do this for a career. Couldn't believe, honestly, that side of the business even existed, that you could get paid to do those kinds of things. So I loved it. My time in Gainesville was awesome. Enjoyed a year there, and I was there right after Danny Werfel had won the national championship and the Heisman Trophy in '96. So I was there in '97, which was funny because for Gator fans, it was kind of a down year, but it was a blast. It was still awesome. Had the incredible win over Florida State in the final game there at the Swamp, and then went to the Citrus Bowl, played Penn State. Coach Donovan was there as well for basketball. I should mention for football was, of course, Coach Spurrier. But it was just incredible, and just to be around that department and getting the opportunity to really just get thrown into it. I mean, that's probably one of the things that I loved was while they definitely gave you guidance, I mean, they threw you right in the deep end of the pool and said, go for it. And it was great. It was a great learning experience, and just a really neat opportunity for me to come from Missouri. I'd never lived anywhere else, and to go down there and just kind of see something different. So I was at Florida for that year as an intern. Then made probably the unusual step to go to Georgia from Florida, and was at UGA for 4 years in their marketing department as an assistant director and then associate director of marketing. Went from Georgia out to TCU out in Fort Worth, Texas. And that's where I discovered Shiner Bach, by the way, at that brewery, and loved TCU as well. I was there for 2 years, and then had the opportunity to go up to the University of Oklahoma and work with my former AD at Missouri, Joe Castiglione, who is at Oklahoma and still there, which was also really cool because Coach Stoops had been in Florida when I was there, and then Coach Stoops was at Oklahoma when I got up there. So was fun to follow his career path as well. And obviously he was incredibly successful there at Oklahoma. So I was at Oklahoma for 6 years. Again, in marketing, was assistant AD for marketing. Also started in our ticket sales department there at Oklahoma. So a real outbound effort that we'd never had before, and just a way to find new revenue. And that was my first foray really into the ticket office, and was a great opportunity, though. Again, talk about opening your eyes to just different things and different challenges. And then I made my way out here to Greensboro, and I've been at UNC Greensboro. This is my 10th year now, which is pretty hard to believe that I've been out here that long. But it's been an awesome ride. Have enjoyed every step of it. I think that one of the neatest things for me is just to be able to kind of go to different areas of the country and see how they just kind of absorb the culture and just kind of learn about those areas. And so it's been an awesome ride, and it's been really I would say rewarding here at UNCG. Certainly when I got here, we were really in the rebuilding mode, or I would probably just say building mode of this department. It had been Division I at that point for about 15 years, and they'd been very successful at D3, but had never quite been able to make that leap at Division I. And matter of fact, my second year here in basketball, which is our flagship sport, we don't have football, but my second year here, we went 0-15 to start the year for basketball. It puts you in a pretty deep hole, for your marketing plans or anything else. So we fought through it, and we've since turned into quite a I guess you'd say maybe not a perennial power, but definitely a perennial contender for the Southern Conference Championship every year. And we've been in the NCAA tournament, which was probably one of the coolest things that I've been around, is to see just a program and a staff and a fan base that had been wanting something for so long. After I think it had been 17 years since they've been in the tournament. So to see that and just all that emotion and that goes along with it was a really fun experience. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. Kind of been in one big loop, it seems like, around the country here, but now I'm at UNCG as a senior associate AD for external operations, and as you mentioned, our chief marketing officer, and really have worn a lot of hats here. And my current focus now is really on revenue generation, marketing, branding, and just really engaging with our fan base at this point.
Yeah, which, I mean, now more than ever takes the creativity of someone with your background. And what you failed to mention is that you're an American hero, at least maybe in the eyes of the Gator Nation, because you were part of a group that kicked off and started up the Rowdy Reptiles, which is the student section for the
That's right.
basketball of the Florida Gators. And so, I mean,
The
just
funny thing
taking.
is, I still remember that process very well. I can still remember us getting like the names in from people and working with Mike Hill, who's now the AD at Charlotte, and like us talking through like, okay, what are we gonna go with? And yeah, it's funny. It is really cool to see that now, like what that student section has turned into from what it was at the time, which was really small group kids that were passionate, but there just weren't a whole lot of them. And to see what it's grown into now has been really really impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that experience probably helps you with figuring out how to engage fans in this new COVID world. And, especially as a mid-major program without football, you've got your eyes on basketball. So how has your department adapted to COVID and prepared for this year?
Yeah, so it's been, for us, I guess one of the positives about not having football has been that for us, we've been able to really kind of monitor what what the schools of football have been doing to prep, and we've certainly been prepping as well, but we can, they're kind of the guinea pigs, so to speak, a little bit out there for us, so we can kind of see what's working, what's not, and then really kind of implement their best practices. Now it's certainly going to be a little different. Protocols will be different since basketball is an indoor sport, and I know that's going to change things a little bit. But that's been that's really what we've been kind of trying to do as we prepare for events. Now, just in general from an external standpoint, as you can imagine, we've placed a lot of emphasis on finding new revenue streams and engaging with our fan base through other mediums that maybe they've always been there, but we haven't probably put as much time into them because it's usually you're really worried about your events and how much engagement you can get there. Well, when those went away, we had to make some decisions pretty fast about how do we stay in touch with our fans, because we don't want to just be silent for months on end. And at that point, again, you didn't know how long things were going to last. So we put a lot of effort into like online merchandise, Zoom or other web-based, opportunities to engage with fans. And then now looking ahead, even our game broadcasts and how those might change now that we don't have people in the building, but we still, or not many, maybe not a full house, but we still want to be able to connect with those folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think just continuing to be fluid through that and figuring out how to engage with your fans and where they are. And, for example, I know ADU recently recognized UNCG among other schools as being one of the more successful and from a marketing strategies through social media. So congratulations on that recognition. And
thank you. That was, didn't even realize they were doing that, but it was a really satisfying for us because we had a couple of years ago decided to put a lot more emphasis and strategy behind what we were doing with social media. And so it was really, like I said, it was really satisfying to see that recognized, and especially in the way that they did it, to kind of break it down by your engagement rate with depending upon kind of the number of followers you have, where obviously like a Florida or someone is going to have a lot of folks following them. For us, what I kept telling our staff and others is, that's great because it recognizes that even though our numbers may not be as large or as massive as some, it means that we're connecting with them in the right way. And so, yeah, we take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And as you're engaging with fans, of course, it's, to help build a base to support your student athletes, but also look at ways to generate revenue. So, as part of external operations, you're looking at revenue generation, and how has your team utilized alternate streams to generate revenue during this time?
Yeah, I mentioned online apparel or online merchandise sales. We've actually placed a pretty large emphasis on that during COVID. Our staff's found some unique opportunities to provide items that our fans might not have had access to previously. As a mid-major, our fans don't always have the same kind of access that a fan might of a Power 5 school. You could probably go out right now and find almost anything you can think of from an apparel or merchant, or some kind of merchandise item with a Gator logo on it. For our fans, that's not necessarily the case. So we were kind of trying to find what are those things that either might be hot or that just we've never been able to really service our fans with in the past. And so obviously face coverings was a natural, but it was interesting because we weren't seeing face coverings out there with like branded ones in the marketplace. So we did it on our own and worked with BSN, a partner of ours, and sold a ton of them. It was great. I mean, our fans loved it. So anything we can do to kind of engage them. And then we also just recently launched a subscription box. It's called Spartan Co. It's like the Dollar Shave Club and these different kinds of kind of subscription box ideas, and has been really interesting, a really interesting project and fun. And we've had decent success to kind of get started. But honestly, the way we're looking at it is, okay, this is a learning experience. We want to keep doing this. So it was a really great way to kind of start. And now we've been, kind of mining through the data that we're getting of who bought and why and those kinds of things. And looking forward to launching our next one in the winter with new items and just kind of see how we can kind of keep growing that. But that's all incremental revenue that we never realized before. So it's, it's just finding a different way to go out and get some new, like, as you mentioned, new revenue streams. We have another upcoming adventure that I won't release just yet because it isn't out yet, but I'm excited to get going. That is it's another merchandise opportunity. We're going to do obviously the fan cutouts as we get close to basketball or get into that season. And the other thing that we've done is we've tried to collaborate more with the Spartan Club, our fundraising arm, and just help them however we can. And whether that's making phone calls, whether that's putting together some campaigns for them. Again, normally this time of year, we are slammed with other sports going on or prepping for basketball and ticket sales. And so it's just kind of changed right now. And so we're trying to provide as much value and generate as much revenue as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point of when it's quiet, it allows you to be a little bit more creative and maybe participate in different areas of operations that you normally don't have time to. And I think it's really valuable. I would say a lot of people in the industry are really focused on getting that fundraising experience. And now's the time to really get that experience for career growth in that area. How has your business office communicated with you and other leadership staff during this time?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think the key word there really is communicating. It's so important to keep clear lines of communication right now. I mean, it always, but right now especially, there's just, even if there's no update, but just to update, here's where we are, just a reminder on things, because again, things can change quickly. And I think sometimes, no communication can lead to kind of negative communication, filling that void. And so just to hear an update of what's going on or where we need to be is helpful. Our business office provided, weekly updates in our leadership team meeting that then all of us as leadership staff can kind of disseminate to our teammates. But then also, frequent email communication of just trying to reiterate the point and where we are and kind of what direction we're needing to go. And that's, I can't stress how vital it is, for the business office to and the external areas to communicate like that, especially and to collaborate on the overall needs of the department. That's, I think it's beneficial for the revenue generating areas to understand like the goals and the background behind them. And then it's beneficial for the business office to understand the challenges of the external areas, and make sure we're all being realistic with the expectations and what might or might not be feasible. Because it'd be great, sure, the business office can say, okay, I need you to go, increase by 40%, next year. And then there may be reasons we say, well, look, that doesn't line up with what is realistic. That'd be great if we can do it, but let's really talk about what is realistic and let's work together on finding finding some common ground there.
Yeah, you made a really good point about, understanding your goals. And when everyone's working toward a common goal, you will have so much more context too, whether it's just understanding the goal and clarity around that, or even what your financial situation is in an ever-changing environment. And like you said, no news. In this case, no news isn't good news necessarily, because
Right.
the voice in your head fills the void generally with some negativity. So, being upfront and continuing to communicate, even if it's the same thing. Most people that aren't working directly in the business office, accounting isn't their primary language. So the more times you communicate it, I think the better it's understood by everybody else that isn't necessarily familiar with that frame of mind. So all really good points, and hopefully those that are in the business office world are taking notes and understanding what they can do on their side to really help make your whole department operate a lot more effectively. What have you done in your areas to adapt to COVID? And with these adaptations, do you feel they would continue to be utilized when things are back to, quote, normal again?
Right. Yeah, I think I think the first one that probably gets overlooked some. I think people are doing it, but it may be overlooked when people kind of talk about what they're doing. I think one is just empathy for your colleagues and your teammates, and not only that, I mean, really your fan base and others. But it's not business as usual right now, and I think and people understand that, but I think it's things are different. People might need to take off earlier, take off the morning to help their kids with school, or they might need to just they might need to work different hours than what we're accustomed to. I mean, we're in athletics, so clearly, yeah, we work a lot of different hours and kind of strange hours. But I think the empathy side is something that I've tried to do, and I think all of us have tried to do, or have more of for our colleagues and, like I said, our teammates. And I think a couple others is certainly engaging with the fan base through video and merchandise, and like I mentioned, like Zoom and game broadcasts, like just differently than what we've done in the past. I mean, it's always been it's always been, as I mentioned, so driven around events. But I think now that's changed, and I think that will continue as well. Working remotely. I mean, I'm clearly remote today. Has obviously been something we've done a little differently to provide some flexibility for people. And then you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I just call it flexing our creative muscles. In the absence of our normal kind of duties happening, our staff has had the opportunity to kind of flex those creative muscles, and it's kind of fun to go in sometimes to just say, okay, nothing's off the table. Throw out ideas. What do you got? So there's been some really fun things that have come out of that, and I think things that will continue for us. Again, going into what will continue, I think the various ways to engage fans away from game day, as we've already been seeing. It might not be Zoom, but kind of those personal touches that might not be in person, but they're quick, easy, they're effective. Those I think will stay around. It's just they're too easy and cost effective not to do, and fans seem to like them. Again, people are going to get zoomed out, and they already are, but there's going to be different ways that I think it continues to evolve digitally. And then with game broadcasts, I think you'll see those could change with less staff on site, potentially not necessarily broadcasters, but maybe some of the folks doing graphics and things like that. I mean, again, it'll be less expensive for the companies to do it, and for someone, if they don't have to travel but they can still get paid to do their job, some of them would probably be on board with that. So I think you'll see those will be some of the things that will continue.
Yeah, I think it's, technology has allowed for this prior to the pandemic, but I think a lot more people are willing to learn new tricks. If, the old dogs saying of, when you're forced to embrace it, you have to embrace it. And so, I think every industry sees that, and just being able to still have meaningful connections, be effective and more cost effective and more effective at what you're doing if you're doing it in a setting that's best for you. So I'm excited to see what happens post-pandemic with that.
Yeah.
So what changes in the industry have surprised you the most since sports shut down in March?
I think one, and we were just talking about game broadcasts, the creativity that I've seen come out in some of these game broadcasts. Now, again, albeit some of these are NBA, and they definitely have a lot of resources to make some of these happen, but just some of the creativity that I've seen around those, as well as around fan engagement. The way people really early on, it was not long into things kind of quote unquote shutting down that there was just a big difference in the amount of content you were seeing out there for fans and the way that we were engaging with them. I know personally for our team, and I think it was this way probably for most, when everything kind of grinded to a halt, there was that, again, you weren't sure how long it was going to last, but then when it started looking like, hey, lots of things are getting canceled, it was kind of a gut punch. And it was, not just because something was canceled or people were, I don't think at that point people were fearful of like economic impact and how jobs might change or things like that. I think it was just more like, hey, we all identify with these teams and these are part of these teams, and maybe not to the extent of a coach and student athlete, but we care about them and the student athletes and everything that's happening. And so it took, I know for me personally, it took a little bit of time to just kind of almost reconcile that in your mind and be like, okay, we're moving to something different. But once we did, as I mentioned, the ability to flex those creative muscles. When we were having our Zoom, meetings there early on, and as a staff, and just starting to try to talk about things that we can do and what we needed to be doing, like the ideas that were coming out were really cool and creative. And a lot of times it was just, what can we actually pull off, like with the amount of staff we have, and we're not in the offices and things like that. How can we make these things happen? But so I think those were a couple of things that really stood out to me: the creativity of those game broadcasts and the fan engagement content. Also, just that quick shift, how quickly people everywhere were able to do that, to shift kind of to digital options and in many of the ways that I've already kind of mentioned. The other thing that I maybe wasn't an industry change, but it was something that surprised me, was the fans' desire for content without events. I mean, we're all always fans and of your team or teams, but usually there's events to look forward to, or it's the off season and you're looking forward to the season coming up. But like when you're supposed to be playing and you're not, I guess I did not account for how much fans would still be just dying for content, no matter what it was, which was reassuring in some ways, certainly for those of us who are in it, that are like, oh my gosh, we don't have, there aren't games going on, are they going to care? And by and large, our fans were saying, we still care. We want, we just want to hear from you. We want to see anything you can, whether it be videos or updates on what they're doing right now and how everybody's coping with things. So that was something I did not expect. And one thing I want to point out that I should have earlier is, talking about the creativity and the things that people have been doing, not just in our department, but around the country, is, I want to point out the importance of the creatives, the creative staff, of the designers, the marketing folks, video and ticket office, development, communications, social media. I mean, all those different folks in the athletics departments and sports organizations all over the country, because those staff members have been the voice of the teams connecting with the fans. I mean, they're the ones who've really been, who've really taken it to the next level. They probably don't get nearly as much credit as they deserve. Usually, those are folks that are more in the background, but man, they have stepped up in a huge way. And I know the coaches and the athletes are the ones that's who people want to see, but there's that person behind the scenes that is connecting the two, the coaches and student athletes with the fans. And they have been phenomenal during this time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, that's really a huge driver to the financial success of a college athletics department, is getting relevant information to the fans in a timely and meaningful manner so that the fans stay engaged, the fans stay interested, and, people's expectations change and circumstances change. So constantly having to shift and pivot to meet those changes and continuing to be creative. So I hate to see that, in a lot of schools, there have been a lot of great people across all departments that have, had their jobs changed as a result of the pandemic. And, I just really, my heart goes out to all of them. But I do think that, any way to save those people behind the scenes that are really driving forward will just help athletic departments recover a lot more quickly when things bounce back. So making sure you're being really careful with your resources and thinking about ways to, keep your people and make sure they're doing a great job for your teams. So thank you for sharing that. One final question: what piece of advice would you like to share with your peers across college athletics?
I think, I've heard this a few times, and I don't think it can be stated enough, though. Like you said, it is a tough time right now. Whether someone's maybe out of work looking for a job, or just that they're stressed out with all the different things that are going on in their personal life, in their professional life, as well as just that we're all dealing with things that are just different at work right now. It's just not not what it used to be. Is the best one I've got is just be comfortable being uncomfortable. Just go. It's okay. Understand that it's just going to be different. When you go into work, that first game day you have is going to be probably different than the other game days you've had in the past, and we're all adapting. And I think by and large, I've seen, as I've mentioned, tons of creativity, tons of incredible ideas that have come out of this. And I really do think, with even though there's been some hardships and it's been difficult, I think our industry in the long run is going to be better off for it. I think there's going to be a lot of positives that come out of it. But I think obviously it's challenging right now. But like I said, for me, it's how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that spans lots of different reasons, not just COVID, but just lots of different things that our country's kind of dealing with right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really great advice. Thanks, Tim, for joining us today. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I'm hopeful that those wearing financial hats value your perspective for the cross-departmental collaboration that you talked about between external operations and others with the business office. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into News and Brews Sports Biz as we advocate for the college athletics financial voices to be heard. Make sure you subscribe to the series on your favorite podcast or video platform so that you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you like what you've heard, we'd appreciate a review or a rating. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would really help us too. If there's a topic you'd like to see covered on a future episode, or if you'd like to join us, please contact us through our website at jmco.com. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media for more news as the collegiate athletics landscape continues to rapidly evolve. Cheers, and let's go, G.
Thanks, Katie.